way to begin. I'm so excited to see so many of you here, and I'm buzzing off the energy of Women in Business and Technology this year. And thank you for all these eager smiles I can see at the front. It's fantastic to be together, and I'm glad that the topic of big impact without burnout has drawn such a big crowd, because it's something that I care about so passionately, and it is so important, and you clearly all recognize that. So we've only got 30 minutes together, but my intention is that this isn't just informational, but we really try and make the next 30 minutes transformational. My name is Bianca Best. I'm an author. I'm a proud mother to 4 wonderful children. I'm a chief executive officer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an executive coach. But probably most importantly, I'm an advocate for graceful productivity, because I firmly believe we can all flourish and life should not be a struggle. So over the next 30 minutes, I hope that I can empower you with some tips and tricks around core decisions that you can make to ensure that you empower yourselves and don't cascade dangerously down into burnout. So how serious is burnout? Well, clearly, by the crowd, everybody recognizes that it really is a threat, and it's being taken seriously by the World Health Organization, for instance, who categorized burnout as a global epidemic in 2019. It's costing the global economy around $1 trillion a year. But if you look around the room, 1 in 4 of us is going to be signed off on long-term stress leave in the next 12 months. Sadly, cases of burnout are doubling year on year. And in fact, Glassdoor, the economic team at Glassdoor, have recently identified that 88% of British workers acknowledge that they will at some point trip into burnout. And that's a horrible, harrowing reality. And how does that actually manifest in us? What does it feel like? Well, it tends to start with this sense of overwhelm, where myriad demands are hitting us simultaneously. And I'm sure those of us who are high achievers think, it's okay. Bring it on, bring it on. I can deliver this, I can deliver this. But actually, the assault of the numerous demands hits so hard and fast that we start to actually feel a little bit overwhelmed, to the point where we can't make decisions anymore, we can't prioritize effectively, and life starts to feel a little bit too overwhelming. We get this mental fog, and then gradually it starts to really invade us physically. And we start to feel very depleted in energy, we start to really decline, and the way this manifests most significantly is that we can actually shift from the cortisol adrenaline state into severe immune collapse. And that's the point where we just literally go home, go to bed, put the duvet over our heads, and we're no good to anybody. And it feels horrible, and it's not a place that any of us want to be. So I'm going to very quickly tell you my story and about why I care so much about ensuring that you can have your biggest, brightest, most glorious impact without burnout. I've always described my CV as a chronology of passions explored. I've just followed my interests. I wanted to get into writing. I loved the editorial world. I got into magazines early on. Then that expanded. I went into the creativity of advertising. And then in my early 20s, I fell into entrepreneurialism. And I'll tell a little story here, because I wasn't expecting or planning to do this, but I had the seeds of an idea when I created a gift for my then husband. It was our 10-year anniversary. I wrote him a poem called A Decade to Remember, stuck some photos around it, put it in a frame. That was hanging in our hall, and everyone that came round said, "Oh, where did you buy that?" And I just thought, well, could that actually become a marketable commodity? And yes, indeed, it could. And I just followed my vision, my dream, to really start to transform the personalized gift industry. And this is back in 2004, where if you were lucky, you go into Clinton's and find a mug carousel with your mum's name on it. But there was nothing truly personal. And I wanted to change that, and I really believed I could. And I did. And fast forward year after year, and I went from manufacturing gifts in my house. We had a production area in the garage. We had a large format printer in my son's bedroom, and it was just chaos. Customer service was in the playroom. But I just leaned into the the vision that I had, and just the business grew and grew. And eventually I had an omnichannel business, I had retail outlets, I had a direct-to-consumer website, a big manufacturing business, and fantastic moments where I was on This Morning showcasing a range of personalized gifts. And I just had really learned so much about myself. And the main thing that I learned is that with the right energy, focus, and attention, you can create anything you so desire, as long as you have that unwavering belief in your vision and yourself. I never accepted no. And sometimes I'd knock on doors of production, industrial estates, production companies, and I'd say, please work with me. And they'd look at me with my double buggy and just laugh me out the door. But I was persistent, and I did grow a successful business, which I ran for a decade. I sold that business when I found out I was pregnant for a third time, and the universe had sent me twins. So suddenly I had 4 children under 7 and a business. And I just decided, for whatever reason, fate was blessing me with this moment to focus in on family. And so I did. Eventually sold that business, fell into digital marketing, and entered the corporate realm. Very new, lots to learn. It was fun. I'm still here. And then I started my writing again and running my big impact without burnout business. So throughout that career trajectory, obviously knowledge was also expanding. Beyond a degree and various qualifications, I learned about entrepreneurship. I learned how to lean into life and make the most of myself and opportunities, and how to find the opportunities. In the corporate environment, I learned about leadership. I learned about politics, still learning a lot about that, but I learned how to manage myself. I then dived into writing and really trying to perfect the craft of writing. And even now, I'm certifying to get the highest level of coaching accreditation. So knowledge expanded, the career expanded, and life expanded. And I'm sure so many of you can relate to this expansion. I started to make money from property and just leaned into property renovation. I learned how to be a parent. I'm still learning. Those little small people don't come with a manual. And so it's all a learning curve. I've more recently learned how to divorce amicably after 26 years. Again, there's no manual, but I've had to learn. I learned how to have 2 dogs. That didn't work. They fought. I now only have 1. The point that I'm making here is that life expanded and expanded. And I'm sure you will look at this and go, oh, my life's like that. My life has got fuller and richer and more varied the older I've become. But actually, this linear trajectory is not necessarily always a happy one. Because actually, in my personal story, and perhaps you're similar, once the businesses grew, the kids grew, the impact that I was trying to make out into the world grew, I actually got sicker and sicker and sicker. And the burnout strikes started to happen in my late 20s. And you can see the pattern here of where suddenly I would be literally hospitalized with immune collapse. And these burnout episodes always coincided with me pushing my limits in some aspect of my life, whether it was time misspent or energy misspent, or my integrity being compromised in some way. And as these burnouts would strike me, suddenly I'm rendered useless to everyone. So all my dreams, my plans, my visions, actually I couldn't fulfill any of it because I was in bed, asleep, desperately asking for help from other people. And this is why I started to research burnout, what I was doing wrong, and how I could correct myself and start experimenting with myself and then experimenting with others, and started building out core principles that enable each and every one of us to flourish. And that's what I'm going to talk through today. So there's only one chart in here, this chart, and this is a stress productivity curve that was created by 2 scientists back in the 70s, Yerkes and Dodson. And what this shows us is that a little bit of stress is actually a really good thing. And think of that sort of tingle of anticipation you get if you're about to go on a roller coaster ride, or you're about to go on a first date, or come on stage. You get that little tingle, a little rush of adrenaline, but that's actually really good for you because that keeps you motivated and focused and alert, and you're likely to deliver at your best. So it's good to find that peak performance. But what happens all too often these days is we get this multiple assault of demands that hit simultaneously, and we're at that cortisol adrenaline state, and instead of it being good, it's unsustainably prolonged. And we start to really just struggle in terms of energy, in terms of how to direct our time, and we sadly start to cascade down that negative side into burnout. And so it's up to us to understand when we're at that really nice sweet spot that sits at the top of the peak to ensure that we don't end up on the horrible side. And I'm not for 1 minute saying that it's a bad thing to be ambitious and to want to do it all, because impact matters. We're actually pre-wired to want to be part of a tribe to demonstrate our value. So it's okay to want to prove that we can have impact. We just need to work out how healthily we can ensure that we're delivering that impact in the areas that matter most. And actually, there's a very easy equation of how we can actually work out what our most effortless impact can be. Is this beautiful sweet spot that's what you do effortlessly, and that will be truly unique to you. What you're fascinated by, what are your guilty pleasure little read in bed on a Saturday morning because you just can't get enough of that knowledge? What's that topic area? And then what is it that the world or the team or your family need? Where is that value going to be most useful? And that's it. It's that simple equation. And if we can honor that sweet spot consistently, then life won't be such a struggle. But sadly, what happens is in the pursuit of more and taking on the richness and fullness of life, we actually get pulled in too many different directions. The kids want us, the boss wants us, the business wants us, and it's all too much, too intensely. And when we're hit multiply, what happens is actually we start to become reactive. And then life starts happening to us, and we go a little bit unconscious because the juggle is a struggle, and we're exhausted, and we collapse into bed at the end of the day, and life feels like it's really uncomfortably happening to us. But it doesn't need to be that way. And so the 3 things that I'm going to talk about today really come down to key decisions that you make, because the power of decision making is that shift between being reactive and being proactively in control. Because burnout primarily comes from that feeling of loss of control. So we want to get you back into a place where you feel you're in control, you're directing your life in the right way, in the right time, so you're having impact where it matters. So we're going to talk about 3 key decision areas. The first one, I'm going to ask you to master energy. But you need to decide energy. Because when you decide energy, you organize your life to optimize your energy. And the reason there's a running track in this image is because I love this story about Roger Bannister. Just before he broke the world record and was the first person to hit the 1-minute mile, he wasn't training, he wasn't on the track perfecting his craft. He was on a hiking holiday with his buddies because he'd already done the training. He was fit, he was ready. So he knew that he could take the time to relax, to rest and rejuvenate. So he was then ready to break the world record. So you have to be aware of that balance between stress and rest and your own energy, because it's going to be unique to each and every one of us. Time. Most of my clients complain about not having enough time. And yet we have custody of our time, and it's up to us to master how we're spending our time. It's so important. We only have 4,000 weeks is the average lifespan. And do you want to waste any one of those weeks? So we're going to talk about how we can master time. And then finally, this is probably one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn, honoring your own integrity. Decide to honor your own integrity, and we'll work out what that means for you individually. But when you behave in congruence with your own integrity, fulfillment comes. It's so important. So with those 3 decisions that we're going to work out how we can lean into them now, that's where we reach this graceful productivity. And that's the utopian destination that I don't want to be a utopia. I want it to be your reality. So it's no surprise to know that your energy is going to impact your productivity. But the big secret is that you control how you make and how you deplete your energy. So that control is all yours. And it's up to you to become really aware of where the energy reserves are within you and how you can maximize energy. I'm going to go into what I call the productivity balance system, which are 6 core areas of energy. And then we're going to do a little exercise at the end. But the key point I want to make here is that you are all unique. Each and every one of us will have a different response to different stimulus, for instance. You might be able to have a espresso and go straight to sleep. I might have a coffee in the morning and still be shaking at 2 a.m. the next day. We're all going to react very differently. So there is no one size fits all. So don't look at your best friend and assume because she's doing something, you need to do that too. You've got to take responsibility to design your own peak productivity plan. And we're going to do that today. So within these 6 areas of the productivity balance system, let's start with some very core basics. So sleep. Sleep should be something you revere. I grew up in the 80s where it was work hard, play hard, don't sleep. But my goodness, how wrong is that? There are so many core aspects of our physiology that need sleep to repair. The muscles are synthesized and repaired while we sleep. There's a synaptic fluid that cleanses our brains while we sleep. So it really matters. So create your bedroom as a haven. I try and view going to bed as the start of the new day. And it's a really lovely way to take responsibility for how you recognize that sleep is really going to impact how you show up in the world the next day. And then diet. Again, this is incredibly personal, but the core principles of following a nutrient-dense diet, of having fresh, unprocessed foods, naturally are going to empower you to feel a sense of vitality. So how can you build more of that into your daily life and really understand your hunger? When you feel the pangs of hunger, is there a particular nutritional deficiency, or are you actually needing a bit more energy, or are you just bored? Really try and think about what hunger is. And when you stand in front of the fridge, do you really want the chocolate digestive or do you want an apple? Ask your body. Just become intuitive and trust yourself. Fake energy is something I talk about a lot, especially now having 4 teenagers. I get very upset with the energy drinks, and I learned recently that actually in Denmark, drinks like Red Bull and Monster are only sold in pharmacies to over 18-year-olds. So there's different regulations in every country, but it really shocked me because we're in this culture of coffee and tea and energy drinks and quick fixes. Alcohol used to be one of my favorite ones, but actually when you're leaning on fake energy, you're really deregulating your body. You're shifting so far away from homeostasis that your body then has to work really, really hard and expend even more energy just bringing you back to its basic optimum state. So try and be aware of where you're leaning on fake energy. And then relaxation. I ask this question so often, how do you relax? And so many people can't answer. So ask yourself, how do you relax? And can you build in any more healthy relaxation consciously into your calendar? And then extreme productivity is something that too many high achievers are actually unaware of. They think that they are giving, and actually they're not in flow. They're a bit frantic, they're a bit frenetic. So it's something to watch out for. Is it healthy, the amount that you are doing? And try and get some feedback. What vibe are you giving off? Are you too frantic and hyper? That's a sign that you need to really slow down and ground. And then emotional stress. Life is going to happen, it is going to hit us, and it's up to us to really acknowledge and give ourselves the space. When stuff is hitting us emotionally, that is draining our energy. And so we need to recognize and acknowledge that, whether it's getting support from friends, whether it's just slowing down, or just building the opportunity to laugh into a schedule more consciously. Be aware of the impact that emotional stress is having. Okay, We're not going to have time to do proper workshop-y stuff here today, but what I'd love you to do is take a photo of this screen, and then this evening, when you have time for private reflection, really score yourself in those 6 different categories that I've just described, because that is your guide to where you need to consciously decide to make adjustments to your habits and to improve your overall productivity balance. Anything on a 1 or a 2 needs to be looked at. So become conscious of it and lean into it. Okay, so time mastery. This again is something that all too many clients just say, oh, I just don't have enough time. But you know what's funny? If they were falling in love or if they were having an affair, they would find the time. It's amazing how it magically appears when it's something you really want. And so I'm going to ask you, how are you prioritizing your time? And we're going to go through some key principles now. And again, this is an exercise I normally do over a much longer period of time, but I want to make the point to you now. If you don't control your time, others will. So you need to be really intentional about how you're spending your time, how you're directing your energy. It's precious. So I invite you to just lose yourself in a little fantasy of what your life will look like in your 60s or 70s. So here I'm talking about 25 years from today. Some people that might make them laugh, but others, the whole point is it's got to be so far away from today that you connect into an inner child dream. What would your life look like in your 60s and 70s? So just lock that in as a sensation. What does it smell like? Who are you with? What are you doing? How does it feel? Lock that in. There's that big vision. Now, let's bring it back to what are you doing in the next 3 months? What does that look like? What are your goals? What are you planning on doing in the next 3 months? Have a little think about that task list. Where are you? What are you going to have achieved by the time we get to January the 1st? And now I'm going to tell you that 3 months is 1% of 25 years. So if there was nothing in that task list, that goal list, between now and the 1st of January that ladders up to that big fantasy vision of your magnificent life, then you're wasting time. And that's not on, is it? Because the number one regret from the dying is having wasted life. And that includes not taking the risks, not leaning into the passions, not connecting with the people that matter. So we've got to be intentional. So do this exercise at your leisure, at home, and then really look at where there's dissonance and what could you bring into the next 3 months that immediately gets you on track towards that beautiful, shiny vision. Motivation. So when your motivation levels are high, you are going to bounce out of bed. You're going to seize every day. And ultimately, you need motivation to be delivering that maximum impact. And there are various ways that you can stimulate motivation in you. But again, it needs to become conscious, become mindful. How motivated are you? Do you remember that 3rd and final lockdown? How horrific that was, trying to motivate. I remember trying to get myself out of bed and put my slippers on and go downstairs and look at the screen again. You know, that was really low motivation. And so I had to just employ all of these different tricks to get myself motivated. It can be as small as building your self-esteem, so you just feel in a good place. And that could be as small as a micro habit, like putting a slice of lemon in your water when you wake up. Just something that makes you feel, oh, I'm a good person. You get that buzz of self-esteem. Chasing joy. Think about how we were as children. You'd naturally dance in the street. What could that look like today? How can you bring more of that into your life and feel motivated to just enjoy more pleasure? And success ideologies are very important because quite often where we start to feel upset in our lives and just at the precipice of we're going down into burnout, we can realize that we're chasing someone else's success ideology. It's not even our own. So did you go to medical school because you come from a lineage of doctors, but actually it's not your dream? What is your dream? Really redefine success on your terms and honor it. And then look at the role models who inspire you. If they're inspiring you, follow them. Really, just tune into what's great about them. Do that. Do that yourself as well. And then vitality and honoring your values, we're going to talk about a little bit more. to have time, we need to make more space for time. And actually, we don't realize quite how distracted we are these days. And it's sadly dangerous. I read a fantastic book that I recommend called Dopamine Nation. I read this recently, and in there, scientists have discovered that the prefrontal cortex, the planning zone of the brain, is actually starting to shrink, where we're becoming so reactive and dependent on notifications, which is a scary and staggering statistic. So cut the media noise. Be aware of your social media habits. When you wake up in the morning, don't look at your phone for the first hour or 90 minutes of the day. Set your vision for the day. Set your goals for the day. Don't be distracted and be reactive. Don't consume the news if it upsets you and stresses you. Eliminate the stresses and be conscious. Think about the commitments you have in your world. Do you really need to iron your sheets? Is that getting you to that beautiful vision? Do you need to bake the cakes for the cake sale? Just think about what you can bin. And then draggy people. So there's a lovely expression that you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Are they dragging you down? Are they lifting you up? What do they do to your energy? Just be really aware of that. And your habits that you had last year might not serve you now. So constantly be conscious. And then this is one that's so important. I want you to be heartfelt. I want you to be intuitive and be present, because when you are in flow and present, life expands. So it's your responsibility to follow this guidance. But I want to get into something tangible, how you can maximize you. I talk about having a conscious calendar. If you look at your schedule, how much of it is optimized around all this stuff we've been talking about today in terms of energy? How much of it is actually necessary? You have the opportunity to plan your time in such a way where you're only in the meetings or doing the things that contribute to your higher goals. But you need to design your calendar that way. So I'm going to talk about a new science called ecological psychology. That is based on the fact that we respond to different environments better to do different tasks. And so again, I'm going to set this as an exercise for you to do later, where I want you to analyze the different types of tasks that you deliver in any one week. So category of work, it could be financial, creative, administrative. And then think about the different types of mindsets that you need for those different particular tasks. And then think about the different locations. We do operate in this hybrid world now where we've got the privilege predominantly of choosing where we work. Where could you organize yourself to be to deliver the certain tasks optimally? And sorry, I'm going fast because I know time is running out and I want to deliver the rest of this talk. So integrity is the next big decision I really encourage you to own. And this is about your values, your purpose, and your mindset. And you are never going to be fulfilled if you're not honoring your values. So really understand how values are guiding you towards what matters and what you should be doing. And the values are these specific belief systems that we have about what is right and wrong in our lives. Let them guide you. There's an exercise I'm going to invite you to do, not here and now, but it's a peak experience meditation. And if you go onto YouTube, please just search for peak experience meditation, and that is where you will mine for values. You'll be taken to a peak experience and then journal about it, capture it, and the values will bubble up from that. Purpose matters so much, and I think sometimes it's wrong that it becomes this broad, ethereal, magnificent thing. And my son came to me the other day and he said, "Mummy, I don't know what my purpose is." And I was like, well, it's okay. You don't need a lofty purpose of eradicating child poverty. It's okay if your purpose right now is learning how to have your first job. You know, think about what purpose can mean to you in terms of just being, but being in a state of integrity with who you are and what matters most. And then finally, really think about your mindset. I don't like the drifting downstream, but it's up to us to become responsible and to really sort of bin the pity party, avoid a victim mindset, and just have openness and curiosity, keep learning, lean into new experiences, new people, and just always remember when bad things happen, which sadly they will, actually adversity builds resilience. So there's always a silver lining to whatever is happening, and there can be a reframe. And I love taking this this mindset, this philosophy that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And that just feels quite reassuring on a spiritual level. That core equation here, stress and rest, is healthy, sustainable growth. And that is what you need to manage your stress and balance it with rest. That is how you're going to be able to maintain impact. So let me leave you with this quote around decisions, because decisions do equal your destiny. And it is a wondrous thing that a decision to act releases energy in the person, and in the wake of that decision, energy is released. The act of decision sweeps all before it, and the life of the individual may be changed forever. So I don't want you to burn out. I want you to burn bright and acknowledge the fact that we are living through the fourth industrial revolution. It's a privilege to be alive and working today. But we need to ensure that we are doing all of this work to ensure that we find our inner balance and our outer shine so that we can have big impact without burning out. Thank you so much for your time. I have written a book, and the organisers here have very kindly invited me to share my book with you. So if you want to head over to the speaker lounge, which is just over here to my left right now, I have copies of the book, and I'd love to answer any questions. Thank you so much for your time today.